Throwaway because I honestly don't know who reads this sub anymore, and at this point I don't trust anyone. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 32F, for 6 years. Together for 9. No kids. We used to be that annoying couple who finished each other's sentences and posted dumb vacation selfies with captions like, "My forever." I genuinely thought we were solid. Not perfect, she's always been sharp-tongued, brutally honest when she wanted to be, and weirdly secretive about small things, but I told myself that was just her personality. Looking back, the red flags weren't dramatic. They were tiny fractures. White lies about where she'd been. Snapping at me over nothing and then acting like I was overreacting. Sudden, work emergencies, that conveniently happened on Friday nights. If I questioned anything, she'd roll her eyes and call me insecure. And maybe I was. I had no proof. Just a growing pit in my stomach. The first real shift happened about 4 months ago. She changed her phone password. We'd never hidden our phones from each other before. When I asked why, she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "God, you're paranoid. It's just basic privacy." That word. Privacy. In a marriage where we used to share everything. I didn't push it. I wanted to be the cool, trusting husband. The mature one. The guy who doesn't spiral over nothing. But something in the air changed after that. She started sleeping facing away from me. She stopped telling me about her day. She'd get these late-night texts and tilt her screen just slightly out of view, not enough to be obvious, just enough to make me feel crazy for noticing. And the worst part? When she did look at me, sometimes it felt like she was already halfway out the door. I kept telling myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. About 2 weeks after the password change, the mood swings kicked into overdrive. She went from distant to overly affectionate in the span of a day. One night she barely spoke to me, claimed she was exhausted, and went to bed at 9:30. The next morning? She's making pancakes, kissing my cheek, calling me, babe, every 5 minutes like we're back in year 1. It messed with my head. Then came the first outright lie I could actually prove. She told me she had a late meeting with a client across town. Said she'd be home around 10. Around 8:45, I decided to surprise her with coffee. She'd mentioned being tired. I drove to her office. Her car wasn't there. I texted, "Hey, I'm nearby. Which entrance are you at?" She replied almost immediately, "In the conference room." Why? Conference room. In a building she wasn't even inside. I stood in that empty parking lot staring at my phone like an idiot. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I actually started questioning myself. Maybe she parked somewhere else? Maybe I missed something? I waited. 10 minutes later, I saw her car pull into the lot. She got out alone. Hair slightly messy. Lipstick smudged, not gone, just off. When she saw me standing there, she froze for half a second. Just a flicker. Then the mask snapped on. "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" she asked, like I was the weird one. I said I was bringing her coffee. She didn't thank me. She just laughed again, that same sharp, dismissive laugh, and said, "You seriously need to stop doing surprise check-ins. It's controlling." Controlling. I apologized. Yeah. I apologized. On the drive home, she talked nonstop about this meeting. Names, fake details, even complained about a colleague who wouldn't shut up. The story flowed too smoothly. Rehearsed. And that was the first time I felt it, not suspicion. Betrayal. Not because I knew she cheated, but because I knew she'd lied straight to my face without blinking. After the parking lot thing, something inside me shifted. I stopped arguing with her. Stopped trying to clear the air. I just started watching. And that's when everything escalated. She began guarding her phone like it was a state secret. Bathroom trips with it. Face down on the table. If it buzzed, she'd flip it over instantly. Once, I walked into the kitchen while she was texting and she physically turned her body away from me. Not subtle. Not even pretending. When I asked who she was talking to, she said, "A friend." Which friend? Why are you interrogating me? It became this pattern. Question, accusation, me backing down. Then one random Tuesday, I got hit with another curveball. She told me she was going on a girls' weekend that Friday. Supposedly planned months ago. Weird that I'd never heard about it, but okay. She said they were renting a cabin about 2 hours away. I asked which friends were going. She named 3. One of them I know well. So later that night, trying to play it cool, I texted that friend something casual about, "Hope you guys have fun this weekend." She replied, "Weekend? What weekend?" My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, reading her message over and over like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something harmless. They didn't. When my wife got home that night, she was in a weirdly good mood. Humming. Talking about packing lists. Asking me if I'd be okay alone. And I sat there nodding, feeling like I was watching a stranger rehearse a role. The lie wasn't even small. It wasn't a white lie. It was an entire fabricated trip. And I still didn't confront her. Not yet. Because now I needed to know how deep this went. Friday came faster than I was ready for. She packed like she was actually going somewhere. Duffel bag, makeup pouch, even that stupid oversized sweater she wears when she wants to look effortlessly cute. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving and said, "Don't wait up. Reception might be bad." Reception might be bad. I remember thinking how convenient that sounded. The second her car pulled out of the driveway, I felt this wave of adrenaline. My hands were shaking. I told myself I wasn't going to do anything crazy. I wasn't going to track her or show up somewhere unannounced. I lasted about 20 minutes. We share a car insurance app that shows driving data. Not location exactly, just trips logged with timestamps and general routes. She wasn't heading north toward any cabins. She was heading downtown. My chest felt tight. I couldn't breathe properly. I grabbed my keys before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't have a plan. I just followed the direction the app showed. 40 minutes later, I saw her car parked outside a boutique hotel. Not a chain. Not business-friendly. One of those modern, dimly lit places with a rooftop bar and velvet couches. I parked across the street. And then, like the universe wanted to make sure I couldn't gaslight myself, I saw her walk out of the hotel lobby. She wasn't alone. There was a guy with her. Tall. Confident. Hand on the small of her back like it belonged there. She was laughing. Not the sharp, dismissive laugh she used on me. A real one. He leaned down and kissed her. Not quick. Not subtle. A full, comfortable, practiced kiss. I didn't storm across the street. I didn't yell. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. It's weird how quiet everything gets in moments like that. Like your brain can't process the volume of what you're seeing. My wife. On a fake girls' weekend. Kissing another man outside a hotel. And the craziest part? She looked happy. I don't know how long I sat there. 5 minutes? 30? Time didn't feel real. They went back inside eventually. Just casually. Like this was normal. Like this wasn't detonating my entire life in real time. I didn't follow them in. I drove home. The drive is a blur. I remember stopping at a red light and realizing I was shaking so badly I could barely keep my foot steady on the brake. I wasn't crying yet. I wasn't yelling. I just felt hollow. Like someone scooped everything out of my chest. When I got home, the silence was deafening. Her suitcase wasn't there. Her shoes weren't by the door. It looked exactly like it had that morning, except now I knew it was all staged. That's when the anger hit. Not the dramatic, throwing things kind. The cold kind. The calculating kind. I started replaying everything in my head. The password change. The late meetings. Calling me controlling. The fake cabin. Texting me about bad reception. While probably in a hotel bed. And the lies. So many lies delivered with absolute confidence. She didn't stumble. She didn't hesitate. She made me feel insane for even asking. Around midnight she texted. Made it. Place is cute. Going to open some wine with the girls. Miss you, red heart. I stared at that heart emoji for a solid minute. Then I replied. Miss you too. Have fun. I don't know why I did that. Maybe I needed her to keep digging. Maybe I needed more proof. Maybe I just wasn't ready to detonate everything yet. But that night I didn't sleep. I just lay there in our bed, my bed, apparently, staring at the ceiling and realizing that the woman next to me for 9 years had become someone I didn't recognize. And the worst part? This wasn't some drunken mistake. This was planned. Carefully. Confidently. Repeatedly. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through our phone bill. We're on the same plan. Always have been. I never checked it before because, why would I? But suddenly I needed numbers. Data. Something objective. There was one number that stood out immediately. Dozens of calls. Hundreds of texts. Mostly late at night. Some early mornings. A pattern stretching back 3 months. 3 months. I copied the number and just stared at it for a while. My heart was pounding again, but this time it felt different. Less shock. More inevitability. I typed the number into social media. It took about 30 seconds. His profile popped up. Public. Smiling profile picture. Gym selfies. Business casual headshot. Mutual connections through her workplace. He worked in consulting. Consulting my marriage into the ground, apparently. There were likes from her account on his posts. Not many. Just enough to look casual. Subtle. But then I saw something that made my stomach twist. A photo from 2 months ago. Rooftop bar. Dim lighting. Same boutique hotel logo faintly visible in the background. And in the corner of the photo, barely noticeable unless you zoomed, was her hand. I recognized the bracelet. I bought it for our anniversary. She told me that night she was out with coworkers. I remember that night vividly because she came home late and irritated, said I was smothering her when I asked how it went. I zoomed out of the photo and just sat there. It wasn't new. It wasn't spontaneous. It was sustained. And then, as if the universe wanted to keep punching me, she FaceTimed me. From the cabin. Wood-paneled wall behind her. Pearl lighting. She smiled too wide. See? Told you reception was spotty, she said. I could hear something faint in the background. Not nature. Not girls laughing. Elevator music. I kept my face neutral. Asked about the trip. She launched into a detailed story about hiking trails and wine tastings. I knew every word was fiction. And that's when something inside me hardened. This wasn't just cheating. This was gaslighting. Strategic, confident deception. And she thought I was still buying it. She came home Sunday evening like nothing happened. No guilt. No weird tension. Just breezed in with a tan, which, by the way, you don't get from a rainy cabin weekend. Dropped her bag, and started telling me about how relaxing it was. She even handed me a small candle and said, "Got this from a cute little shop there. Thought you'd like it." I almost laughed. I asked how the girls were. She rattled off stories, inside jokes, fake arguments about which wine was best, even claimed one of them cried over her ex. The level of detail was honestly impressive. I nodded along. Then she said something that made my brain snap into full clarity. "You should have come. You've been so stressed lately. It would have been good for you." Good for me. I looked at her and for the first time in months, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone capable of looking me in the eyes and manufacturing an entire reality. I asked casually, "Which cabin was it again?" She didn't hesitate. Gave me a name. I said, "Oh cool, I might book it sometime. Send me the link?" And there it was. A pause. Just half a second. But enough. "Oh, Sarah booked it. I don't have the link." I held her gaze. She broke it first. "You're being weird," she snapped. The sharpness was back. Defensive. Irritated. "Why are you cross-examining me?" There it was again, flip the script, make me the problem. But this time I didn't back down. I said quietly, "I drove downtown Friday night." Her face drained of color. For a split second, pure panic. Then anger. "Are you stalking me now?" She shot back. "Not what do you mean? Not you're wrong. Not even a denial. Just attack." That's when I knew the confrontation wasn't going to be clean. It was going to be a war. The second I said it, "I drove downtown Friday night." The air changed. She stood there, completely still. Processing. Calculating. Then she scoffed. "Downtown? Okay. I told you we stopped there for drinks before heading up." That was new. Drinks before the cabin? I didn't say anything. She kept going, filling the silence with frantic improvisation. "You're twisting things. This is exactly what I mean. You build these narratives in your head and then act like they're facts. Gaslighting 101. So I said it plainly. "I saw you kiss him." Silence. Not shock. Not confusion. Silence. And then, unbelievably, she rolled her eyes. "Oh my God!" It was nothing. Nothing. My ears were ringing. "Nothing?" She crossed her arms. Defensive posture. Chin lifted. "We had too much to drink. It was stupid. It didn't mean anything. You're acting like I ran off and married the guy." I felt my hands go numb. "You told me you were at a cabin. And?" she snapped. "You would have freaked out if I told you I was going out. You were at a hotel." She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "We needed somewhere to sober up." "We." So now it was we. I said his name. Her head jerked up. That was the first real crack. "How do you know his name?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. And then she did something I wasn't prepared for. She started crying. Not soft, remorseful tears. Loud, frustrated ones. "You don't understand how hard this year has been," she said. "You've been distant. You've been boring." I felt invisible. Invisible. I thought about all the dinners I planned. The weekends I tried to organize. The conversations she shut down. "You lied to me for months," I said. She shot back immediately. "Because you can't handle the truth." That line hit harder than anything else. Because suddenly this wasn't about a mistake. In her mind, this was justified. And I realized we weren't arguing about infidelity. We were arguing about reality itself. The crying stopped as fast as it started. Like someone flipped a switch. She wiped her face, sat down at the kitchen table, and suddenly her voice was calm. Too calm. "Look," she said. "You're blowing this up into something it isn't." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain couldn't process the level of detachment. 3 months, I said. Hundreds of calls. Fake trips. That's not nothing. Her jaw tightened. So she knew I knew more. "You went through my phone records?" she asked, offended. That's what she focused on. Not the lying. Not the cheating. My invasion of privacy. I was trying to understand what was happening in my own marriage, I said. She leaned back and sighed dramatically. "You're suffocating me. That's the problem. I needed space. I needed to feel something. Something." "So you slept with him?" I asked. There it was. The question I'd been circling. She hesitated. That half-second pause was louder than any confession. Then she said, "It just happened." Which is not an answer. "Did you sleep with him?" I repeated. She looked away. "It wasn't planned." My chest felt like it caved in. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there while the full weight of it landed. She saw that shift in me too. And for the first time, she looked unsure. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said quietly. "But here's the thing. You don't accidentally build 3 months of secrecy. You don't accidentally fabricate trips. You don't accidentally look your husband in the eye and say, 'Miss you, Red Heart,' from another man's bed. This wasn't a slip. It was a double life. And the scariest part? She still didn't look sorry. She looked inconvenienced. That night we didn't sleep in the same bed. She went to the guest room. Slammed the door. Not dramatically, just enough to make a point. I sat on the edge of our bed for a long time, staring at the wall where our wedding photo hangs. We looked stupidly happy in it. Sunburned from the beach ceremony. Her head tilted into my shoulder like I was her safest place. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, searching for the moment she'd show actual remorse. It never came. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. From the guest room. "We need to handle this like adults." Like adults. I walked down the hallway and knocked. She opened the door halfway. Her eyes were dry. Composed. "I don't want to throw away 9 years over something that can be fixed," she said. "Fixed?" I asked her. "Are you still talking to him?" She hesitated again. That damn pause. "It's complicated," she said. There it was. The line people use when the truth is yes. I felt something inside me snap, not explosive, just final. "Is it over?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. "I need closure." Closure. With the man she cheated on me with. I stared at her and realized something terrifying. She wasn't fighting for us. She was negotiating how to keep both. "I don't want to be the bad guy here," she said softly. That sentence hit me harder than the affair itself. Because it told me everything. She wasn't worried about hurting me. She was worried about how she'd look. And suddenly the shock gave way to something else. Clarity. For months I'd been chasing the version of her I married. But that woman wasn't standing in front of me anymore. This was someone else. And I finally had to decide whether I was going to keep pretending she wasn't. The next few days were a blur of emptiness and rage. I stayed mostly silent around her. We ate in separate rooms, barely made eye contact. Every time she tried to talk about fixing things, I felt a mix of disgust and exhaustion. My mind kept flashing back to that rooftop hotel, the texts, the lies, her dismissive smiles, all of it stacking like a wall between us. I started sleeping on the couch just to get space. It wasn't comfort. It was survival. I wanted to feel nothing, even for a few hours. Then came the calls from friends. A couple of them noticed she'd been oddly distant, and asked if everything was okay. I just said, "Yeah, everything's fine," which is the biggest lie I've ever told anyone. But honestly, how do you explain this? That your spouse has been living a secret life for months and still acts like nothing happened? One night, I found another message. Hidden. Not deleted, hidden. She thought I'd never see it. It was from him. Casual. Flirty. Telling her he missed her. She replied with a heart emoji. I didn't respond. I just stared at it. My chest hurt. My vision blurred. I felt a mix of heartbreak, anger, and, strangely, empowerment. Because finally, there was no pretending. No. Maybe I'm overreacting. The evidence was in my hands. I knew the confrontation was coming. Not one argument. Not a discussion. A reckoning. And I realized I had a choice: keep going in circles, letting her lies twist reality, or draw a line. This was the line. I just had to find the courage to cross it. I finally confronted her again the next evening. No sugarcoating. No softening. I laid everything out on the kitchen table, the photos, the texts, the calls, the fake trips. I watched her face carefully, expecting panic, shame, maybe even tears. Instead, she rolled her eyes at first. Sharp, quick, like she was bored of my obsession with details. Then she got defensive. "You're acting like a detective instead of a husband," she said. "I already told you it wasn't planned. Stop overreacting." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just kept my voice steady. "This isn't about overreacting. This is about months of deception. About looking me in the eye and lying again and again. Do you understand how that feels?" Her face flickered. Just a micro-expression, but I saw it. Guilt? Maybe. Panic? Definitely. Then she did something I didn't expect. She tried to justify herself. "I felt invisible. You were distant. You weren't there emotionally. I didn't mean to hurt you." And in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to feel remorse in the way I needed. Her narrative was always going to be about her feelings, never mine. I sat there quietly for a few seconds, letting it sink in. Every memory, every lie, every casual dismissal, it all pointed to one truth. She was selfish. Calculated. Comfortable with hurting me as long as it suited her. And I could no longer pretend that this was fixable with a talk or counseling or time. I had to make a decision. And for the first time in months, I felt the tiniest spark of control. It wasn't about saving us. It was about saving myself. The days that followed were surreal. I started making plans, not for her, not for us, but for me. Counseling? Not for us. Talking to friends? Not to gather advice, just to reclaim my perspective. I spent hours just sitting alone, replaying every lie, every manipulation, every "Oh, you're paranoid" comment. And with each replay, the anger slowly turned into something else, clarity. I realized I didn't want her back. I didn't want to work on the marriage. I wanted honesty, loyalty, respect, none of which she had demonstrated in months, and likely years. I couldn't compete with the excitement of her lies or the thrill of sneaking around. When I finally told her I wanted a separation, she reacted exactly as I'd feared, sharp, cutting, full of blame. "You're throwing away everything we built. You're being dramatic. You're insecure." I let her talk. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I just stayed calm. Every word she threw at me, every attempt to twist the story, reinforced my decision. I arranged a place to stay, packed my essentials, and for the first time in months, slept without that constant pit in my stomach. She texted me later that night. "You'll regret this. You're making a huge mistake." I didn't reply. Because for the first time, I wasn't chasing her version of reality. I was living mine. And it felt freeing. I won't lie, it hurt. It hurt like hell. But I finally understood something crucial. Sometimes, the hardest choice isn't to fight, it's to walk away. And I was walking. The weeks after moving out were rough. Every little thing reminded me of her, the scent on a coffee mug, a song on the radio, even our stupid wedding photos still hanging in the empty apartment. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake thinking about all the lies, all the moments I'd doubted myself, all the little, red flags I'd ignored. But slowly, something shifted. The anger started to fade into sadness, and the sadness into a quiet resolve. I began journaling, running, talking to friends, anything to process the betrayal without letting it consume me. I realized that the pain wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the erosion of trust, the manipulation, the repeated dismissals of my feelings. That hurt runs deeper than any single act. And as I processed it, I started understanding something important. I didn't deserve to be gaslit, lied to, or made invisible in my own marriage. Not by someone I trusted. Not by someone I loved. I also noticed a strange clarity about who I was and what I wanted moving forward. My boundaries, my values, my emotional health, They became priorities instead of negotiable concepts. She reached out a few times, trying to justify, to guilt, to negotiate. I didn't engage. Each time I stayed silent, I felt my strength rebuild. The betrayal left scars, sure. But it also taught me to see people for who they truly are, not who I wish them to be. And that perspective has become my armor. I won't pretend it's easy. But every day I wake up knowing I chose myself first. And that is powerful. Looking back now, the biggest lesson I've learned is this: love alone doesn't fix betrayal. Trust, honesty, and mutual respect do. Once those are gone, no amount of history, cute gestures, or we can work through it. Talk can repair the damage. I also learned to trust my instincts. Those tiny red flags I ignored? They were real. They weren't paranoia. I had been gaslit into questioning myself, but the truth was there all along. I just needed the courage to see it. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, pay attention to your gut. Document patterns. Don't let anyone make you feel crazy for noticing what's happening. And most importantly, don't compromise your self-respect for someone who consistently chooses their own desires over your well-being. I'm still healing. Some days are worse than others. But I'm also stronger than I realized. I've learned to set boundaries, speak my truth, and protect my heart. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I actually have a future that belongs to me. It's messy, painful, and unfair. But walking away from a life built on lies, that's how you reclaim yourself. So here's my final advice. If you find yourself in this situation, don't just survive it. Learn from it. Grow from it. And never, ever settle for someone who treats you like an option. Because your peace, your sanity, is worth more than anything else. If you want, I can also compile all 15 parts into one full Reddit-style post so it reads like a continuous thread. It would really hit the emotional flow of the story. Do you want me to do that?